All right, and the last kind of variation you guys have is just going to combine everything. It's called combined variation. So it takes direct, inverse, and joint. So the one thing you want to remember is if something is direct, that means it goes in the numerator. If it's inverse, it goes in the denominator. And if it's joint, it still goes in the numerator because joint is just direct with multiple variables. So it says, remember direct places, oh, I have it right here. Direct places things in the numerator, inverse is in the denominator. And again, joint is just direct. So I just have here, I want you to write out the equation. It says y varies. So as soon as we see varies, we know y goes on the left side by itself. Let's write it a little bit thinner. Y varies directly. So once we see directly, we know that that goes in the numerator. Inversely with z. And then we always need to put a k value in there, so I'm going to put the k up front. K is always going to go up top. Okay, our next one, z varies directly as a and b. So I put a k, and a and b are both direct here. So there's not even a denominator for this one, because there's nothing about inversely. Number 3 says y varies directly as x. So I'll put x up top. It says and y, so I'll put a y up top. And inversely with z, so the z goes in the bottom, always put a k up top. Again, you could use a instead of k if you would like. This says q varies jointly. As soon as we see jointly, that's just me saying direct for both of these things. So b and c are both in the numerator. Inversely with d, that goes in the denominator. Put your k value up front. Okay, that's everything we need to know for these. I'm going to give you a chance to do these 4. Pause the video, try it out. I'll go through it. It says y varies directly as x squared. So you should have y equals k x squared. Y varies w varies inversely. As soon as you see inversely, put x to the third in the bottom. And you can put your k value up top. Z varies inversely with w cubed. W cubed has to go in the bottom. Jointly with x and the square root, or with y and the square root of x. Jointly means top. So we go y and then the square root of x. And then you can put your k value out front. And the last one, z varies directly with the square of x. The square of x means x squared. So x squared goes in the top, and inversely with y, throw your k up top. Okay, for this last thing I have for you guys today, it says A equals BH, volume equals that. These are all formulas that you've probably seen before. And it says to find the K value. So for these ones, I'm going to say for this one, A varies jointly with B and H. If you wanted to, you could say A varies directly with B and directly with H, but I'm saying it's easier just to say jointly because they're being multiplied. It also says to find the K value. I don't have one here. There's no coefficient. So I'm going to say my K, my constant of variation, is just 1 for this, because there's technically an invisible 1 up front. This is missing something. So your question should say pi r cubed, or pi r squared h over 3. For this one, I'm going to say volume varies, and watch what I do here. That's too bold, hang on, that's going to bother me. The volume, V is volume, varies, and then if you look at this, pi and 3 are not variables at all. Pi is not a variable, it's 3.151415926, whatever. So your K value here is actually pi over 3. This whole thing that's not a variable is your K value. But when we talk about our variation, V varies, let's say it varies directly. Or we could say, since there's 2 things that are directly, we could say jointly, varies jointly with the square of R, we'll say, the square of R and H. Okay, since they're both in the numerator, we could say jointly because they're being multiplied. And then for the last one, we can say, let's think, W varies directly with X because it's in the numerator, and inversely with Y because Y is in the denominator. And then my constant of variation, my K here, would be 2. So anything that's not a variable is going to be a constant of variation. You will notice if you printed the notes today, there are a bunch of examples that we did not do that are on your notes. Feel free to use those as extra practice. Your homework is going to be a variation summary worksheet. Right when you get done this video, I want you to go on a Schoology and do the check-in that I put in the direction. It should be just 2 questions. I ask you to find an equation and a constant of variation for 2 different things. Here's an extra practice question if you would like to